All right, guys, these are your notes for our next class, and we're going to start a new unit on conic sections, which our conic sections we're going to look at are circles, ellipses, parabolas, and hyperbolas. And so these are going to be the notes on circles, which I think are the easiest of all the conics. The standard form for a circle looks like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Really, to graph a circle or to do anything with a circle, you need to know what the center is and what the radius is. So when you look at the standard form, notice that we do have two squared terms in here, and you're probably going to see the standard form a lot throughout this section, or something very similar to it. But to find the center, we simply take h and k. Now notice in the original formula it says minus h and minus k, but here it's positive h and positive k. So what I always like to do is I always term it as opposite h, opposite k. That way, whatever I look at in parentheses here, I just take the opposite of it, and that becomes my center. Now h always is your x coordinate for the center, and k is always the y coordinate. And then to find the radius, you simply just take the square root of r squared, which is what it's equal to over here. So let's just take a few examples, and then when you come to class on Tuesday, you'll be practicing these problems. So here it says to graph x minus 2 squared plus y squared equals 16. So in order to graph, we have to know two things. We have to know the center, and we have to know the radius. So to find the center, we're going to apply what we had up here. We're going to go opposite of h, and again, h always goes with x here. So opposite of h, which would be positive 2, and then notice with the y, we just have y squared. There's nothing with it. So what that means is my k value is 0. And then for the radius, I'm going to take the square root of what it's equal to, and the square root of 16 is 4. Now, to graph that, it's fairly easy. We put the center on our coordinate grid. So I'm going to put the center at 2, 0. And then since we're on the xy axis, you can only count up and down and left and right. But I'm just going to count my radius out. So up 4, down 4, to the right 4, and to the left 4. And then I'm just going to connect those in a circle. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be circular. Ooh, that one's pretty good. I don't want to see you draw them like this. That's a diamond. Okay, so try to make it as circular as you can. And that's all you have to do to graph a circle. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy there. All right, now let's talk about writing the equation for a circle. And I'm going to give you 3 examples here for writing equations. The first one is where you have the center and the radius given to you. All right, so if they give you the center and they give you the radius, writing the equation is really easy because all we have to do is put it in this standard form right here. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So when I write this answer, my center is 1, 3. Now remember, in the formula, we want to do opposite of that. So x minus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals, and then we're going to square my radius to give me 25. Straight up, straightforward, very simple there if you got the center and the radius. Okay? All right, let's look at the second example. Here I have the center, but then I have a point that is on the circle. Okay? So in order to write my equation, I need the center, which I have, but then I need the radius. And in this case, I do not have the radius. But what I do have is I have the center, and I have a point that is on the circle. And we know that the radius is the distance from the center to a point on the circle. So, although I don't have my radius, I can find it by doing my distance formula. So to find the radius here, what I'm going to use is the distance formula. And our distance formula, I don't know if you remember this or not, but it's x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, so we're just going to plug in here and solve. So let's see here. X2 is 2. So I'm going to go 2 minus a negative 1 squared plus, and then y2 is also 2, so 2 minus 4 squared. And I'm going to end up here, let's see, 2 minus negative 1, that becomes a plus, so that's 3 squared, which is 9. 2 minus 4 is negative 2 squared, that is 4. And so I end up with the square root of 13 as my radius. Okay, so now here's what I have for this problem. I know that my center is negative 1, 4, and my radius is the square root of 13. Now it's just like example A. So I'm just going to write x, it'd be minus, or we do opposite, remember, opposite of 8, so I'm going to go plus 1 squared, plus y, do opposite of k, minus 4 squared, equals, and now when you take the square root of 13 and you square it, it gives you a positive 13. The square root of 13 squared equals 13. And there is my equation. All right, so I gave you one just straightforward, center and radius. I gave you one where you had to find the radius, and here again, you always need to know the radius, center and radius, to write the equation. So let me give you one more here. All right, in this example, you get the center and you get the area. So, I don't know if any of you remember your formula for area, but the area of a circle is pi r squared. All right, so here, if I know that the area is 81 pi, I'm going to put that in, and now I'm just going to solve this for r to get my radius. So I'm going to divide by pi. So 81 equals r squared, and then we'll square root, and we get 9 equals r. So now, here again, I have my center, which is 0, 3, and I have the radius, which is 9. So I'm going to go write my equation now. All right, since my h value is 0, that can just be x squared. Okay, you may want to write it as, x minus 0 squared, but that's x squared. All right, and then we go plus, now again we do the opposite, so y minus 3 squared equals, and then we do our radius squared, which is 81 in this case. And there is your final answer. So when you come to class next time, you'll have some problems that you have to write the equations similar to what I've given you here, plus you'll have some that you have to graph.